might be coming in here.
You're watching the Eternal Tournament Series.
Hello and welcome back, everyone, to the 6th round of the third weekly of the Eternal Tournament Series Season 5. I am, of course, your host, Bairdrus, once again joined by my wonderful co-host, Sir Rhino.
Hello, yeah, we are entering round 6, and we've got some standout players coming up for you here in this match. Some, I would say, classic lists of seasons past here, still doing well. We're looking at the 4-1. Both of these players, Shed and Buckwheat, are 4-1 currently after 5 rounds, and they're coming with some decks that we've seen before, but with a couple small twists here and there. Let's start off with what Shed's bringing to the table. A deck that I have some experience with.
Yeah, certainly. We'll take a look at Felon Control, of course, your baby, as I like to call it. You were the first person who got me into Felon Control since I was a blue-black player in Magic. We're seeing Shed with a slightly updated version of Felon Control. The big updates into the list are actually mainly in the sideboard, it looks like. He's got 2 copies of Extract in the sideboard, and he does have 4 copies of Trailblaze in the main, which does help quite a bit.
Yep, so nothing huge here as far as changes. Just Trailblaze is a 2-cost fast spell that you just look at the top card of your deck. You can put it on, keep it on top or put it on the bottom, and then draw a card. So it just helps you filter through your deck in the early game, mid game, and late game. Just smooths out draws. Has some nice synergy with, I guess, Wisdom and other fast speed removal. Speaking of fast speed removal, 4 Annihilates you can also hold up when you have your 4 Trailblaze and use one or the other. Also, if you work in Backlash, which notably isn't anywhere in Shed's list here, it can be fun to play alongside that. But then the rest of this is nothing really new. 4 Withering Witch, 4 Champion of Cunning, 4 Harbinger, 3 Vera, 4 Bloodcaster. It's just the same Feln core that we've seen in the past, with just 1 Permafrost and 1 Feeding Time there to help with revenge shenanigans and spots. And then Buckwheat, on the other end, is also bringing a relatively, I guess, new classic here in Chalice. He even calls it Classical Chalice.
Yeah, I like the name Classical Chalice. It is essentially the Chalice of old that people are playing. Again, just an old archetype with a few cards in it that have been changed, a few updates. The big ones in this one are going to be, he's got 2 copies of Bring Down in the sideboard, which allow you to kill a flying unit, I believe. It silences a unit, and then if it was flying, it kills it.
Yep.
And then also Island's Choice, which of course we've seen a few times today. And in the main board, he's got 4 copies of Kothon. Definitely a solid include for Chalice. Of course, you can hit Kothon with Chalice, so that's a extra boon for them, as well as Archive Curator. Archive Curator is the big one that we haven't actually talked about yet since we haven't seen it.
Yeah. Well, we might have to wait to talk about it, as it looks like this match is underway. The players have started. And, they're just going to be drawing cards, so we actually probably can't just talk about Archive Curator here. Although Buckwheat may be taking on a new approach here, or this is showing off what Chalice might have an angle that it might not, or it didn't used to have, where he could just play Kothon here and start getting his beats on. Opts to not and just hold up Desert Marshal instead and not commit more to this board. Meanwhile, Shed Trailblazes on end of turn, sees a Bear's Favor, says, hey, I want power and to kill this 1/1, and does that exact thing. So gets his second Shadow Source while cleaning up a 1/1, so Chalice can't hit it. And the board's just nice and clean. More Kothons.
Yeah, more Kothons indeed. We do see the first Kothon coming down, Buckwheat choosing to hold the second one for the time being. He's holding it up, holding the Desert Marshal in case he needs to jump it in for a silence effect.
Shed opting to play the 2/5 Bloodcaster over the 3/5 Deadly Steward of the Past. If Steward even got silence, it could still block Kothon. I mean, Kothon's not really swinging through a 2/5 anyways, but it is interesting to know they decided to go that route. Interesting to see if he just opts to leave up Wisdom here and pass and just hold up Wisdom and Deathstrike. Deathstrike doesn't have a lot of great targets against Chalice, when Chalice is basically just playing a bunch of bad units other than Kothon and Chalice. But, this Kothon is threatening to get flying and make another 4/4 at some point. You might have to kill it soon. Its ultimate is on 6, and Buckwheat's on 5.
Yeah, it could be coming down as early as next turn, and there are so many Kothons in Buckwheat's hand that we might see an army of flying birds. That being said, Shed does have plenty of removal here. We do see a premium feeding time chilling out in his hand. He's going to have that held up for the first threat that he deems frightening enough to take care of. It's interesting that Shed is waiting on the Kothon, though. I feel like in his position, I would be opting to take care of this Kothon now instead of worrying about Buckwheat having the power and making the Kothon get flying as well as getting the 4/4.
I think when you have a Withering Witch and Black Sky Harbinger in hand, sometimes you don't even care what your opponent's doing as long as you're not under too much pressure. You can just sort of hold on to your removal. But again, against this Chalice deck, you're not really going to get much better targets than a Kothon anyways. They just don't have big, huge units to hit. Kothon's actually as big as it gets. But yeah, Shed threatening to ultimate Bloodcaster there means the Desert Marshal comes out, silences it. Shed just draws a Steward of the Passive response and moves on. Can't Harbinger Storm here. Could Witch or Storm plus Witch if he wants to take out one of these Kothons here. And just save his spot removal for later, and yeah, that's what he opts to do.
And I like this play a lot, just taking care of the board now.
Oh, yeah.
You still have the Black Sky
Chalice
Harbinger.
targets.
You still have plenty of removal, and yeah, I mean, really, that's the most important part, is cutting off the Chalice targets. That's really what the Chalice deck is looking to do, is just start that engine.
Now Buckwheat's got to decide, does he want to get a Kothon out here or wait till he hits 8 power so you can just Kothon plus ultimate right away? That is a choice he's got to make. If he doesn't Kothon, does he Harsh Rule? Does he hold up Desert Marshal? He's also got to Channel the Tempest, so he's got something else to do on 8 power, but he has to hit a 4th primal source for him to even think about doing that too. So he's got options. He opts to do nothing. Again, he's at 26 health still after this attack and has plenty of time to get the most value out of all these cards.
Yeah, he's not under a ton of pressure. He's waiting to hopefully increase the value of this Harsh Rule. And we see the 4th copy of Kothon picked up.
Got a quartet of Kothons. I think you trot one out.
Yeah, I like the sound of that, a quartet of Kothons. And yeah, he will go ahead and drop one down. There's no reason to continue holding them. I mean, you have plenty of backups. And Shed has an interesting decision to make this turn. If he wants to take care of the Kothon now, he can't establish a threat onto the table. So this is a question of, is the Kothon itself scarier, or does he want to establish the board and start being able to press his opponent?
Yeah, he opts to play a 3/5 Deadly here instead of killing Kothon, and now Kothon takes to the sky and brings a new 4/4 Flying Owl with him. And yeah, now Shed's just got to throw a Permafrost on that and probably play a Champion of Cunning here. It might just be, yeah, he's just holding it and just letting the Steward be the only threat. All right. Respecting, I guess, more removal. The problem is you've got to get pressure at some point on this Chalice deck or they're going to bury you in cards. I know you think you're the control deck. I think he's waiting on Champion of Cunning to hit 5 primal.
Yeah, and that makes sense, just insulate it, make sure that the silence effect from the Desert Marshal doesn't take care of it right away, make sure it can't be Channel the Tempest right out of the air.
Never mind.
Yeah, apparently we're both wrong, though, because he goes ahead and drops it right now. And yeah, in response, of course, we're going to see this Desert Marshal come down and take care of it. I'm not going to let that effect go off twice.
A little interesting that he silences the champion there if you're planning to channel it, especially when you know your opponent doesn't have backlash. I think it might have been made more sense to just silence the deadly unit just to make it less annoying and channel the 7/5, but maybe Buckwheat was planning on playing a Kothon here. It'd be a little odd considering how far behind they are. And yeah, all right. The upside here is that you silenced this Champion of Cunning against a deck playing 3 Vara. That might have been the ultimate tiebreaker there on that decision.
We see for Shed's turn now, looks like he's going to just go ahead and drop the Black Sky Harbinger. He's certainly considering it anyway. It does clean up 2 units on the board, and it also can block the Kothon out of the air. So takes care of that immediately. And he was also able to pressure in for 5 damage that turn.
Yeah. So Buckwheat opted to not play a depleted power the last turn. I suppose he just wanted to keep Channel the Tempest damage very high or something like that. But I don't know if that was quite worth it. You're just going to have so much to do with your power going forward. I think I would have played one seat, but ultimately, or hopefully, it's just a minor thing. He's not opting to channel here and instead just start dumping some units out now that the Harbinger's shown itself.
And, he is dropping a bunch of units on the board, and they will at least provide some chump blockers. Yeah, he could also buff Kothon. That way, Black Sky Harbinger can't start pushing through it.
Yeah, it's either that or hold up Scorpion Wasp. But Scorpion Wasp is pretty valuable as a really clean answer to Champion of Cunning. So I think Buckwheat's going to try and hold on to his only Scorpion Wasp that he has in hand right now for that sole purpose.
Yeah, neither of these players really making too much headway on the board at this point. With this Feeding Time, that would be the name of the card. With Feeding Time coming out, the Black Sky Harbinger will have at least a free turn to attack through, so this will start the clock up once again, and Buckwheat's going to be forced to either drop Channel the Tempest or the Scorpion Wasp into it. And considering he just picked up another Channel the Tempest off the top of the deck, I have to imagine that he's willing to commit one to the Black Sky Harbinger now.
It looks like he's just going to opt to instead Alta Kothon because that can also just double block a Harbinger. Of course, that doesn't quite work when another removal spell is coming. But, yeah, I think getting more on the board here is equally fine. Channel the Tempest may have been the safer route, especially because it draws you so many cards. You have another channel, but Buckwheat opting to put more on the board. And Shed could swing first with Harbinger and see if the double block comes out and get the blowout, but instead just doesn't really resort to any tricks here and instead just swings for the 8, gets the 3 guaranteed damage in, and might think about playing a Steward here, although there's going to be enough stuff on the ground ultimately that I don't know if it'll make a difference in terms of lethal count.
Yeah, and it seems like he opts to at the last second. Go ahead and hold on to that. We do see Lumen Defender coming out for Buckwheat. This is going to put him back up to 8. So he's not under a ton of pressure right now, although a Black Sky Harbinger now found for Shed. This will give him a board clear on the following turn.
Yeah, so Shed could have struck down that Scorpion Wasp with Death Strike. Instead opts to just, let it happen, play the Witch and the Steward, and now he's got a Black Sky Harbinger ready to clear this entire board. Buckwheat needs basically a harsh rule here or he's dead, and he doesn't have that. He's got a Kothon, though, that he can play if he's reading Lightning Storm or Lightning Storm or Black Sky Harbinger as a follow-up, but Shed's going to be able to Harbinger plus Death Strike, but Buckwheat's at 8, so it won't be quite lethal, I guess. So it looks like he'll be able to live for a turn here if he goes with the Kothon route.
Yeah, and I think that's his only way out here, unless I'm mistaken. I suppose he could also channel the Tempest, the larger of the two, and he does actually go for the larger of the two Steward of the Pass. He finds a Vanquish now, a little bit punished there, obviously.
Ironic, for sure. And hedging a little bit, attacking with these deadly units, which doesn't even block the 1/1 deadly. I think that'll tell him something here. But now he's got to decide, does he just play this Kothon? All right, this Kothon's just going to die to the Death Strike before he gets the ultimate, and the Black Sky Harbinger is going to clean up this board. Of course, Shed will have nothing left, so if Buckwheat just top decks Harsh, well, he can definitely get back in this, but that's on Buckwheat to draw here. I think if you're Shed, you've got to go with the aggressive line. Maybe not Death Strike the 2/3, but if you don't do that, it's threatening to make a 4/4 flyer.
Yeah, I like the Death Strike here. I mean, as you've said multiple times in this matchup, Kothon is the biggest unit that Buckwheat's going to play. The only other unit you're really looking at hitting with the Death Strike would be Lumen Defender. So I really feel like it's fine to commit here.
Wow. He opts to hold this Death Strike for, I don't know what better target he's hoping to find than Kothon here. And especially now, like, you're giving the Chalice player an actual Chalice target too. It's an odd move, but I guess he's hoping to hold it for like a surprise attack somewhere. But again, Kothon has endurance, and it's making an extra unit. I'm
Yeah,
not
he
sure
can
why,
make the
why he's
extra
holding on to
unit.
Destro.
He can make the extra unit, and he can still chalice it this turn. Which seems fine, right?
Yeah, no, that's an okay turn because you're gonna exhaust Kothon with the Chalice. Well, let's see, Chalice plus activation is 6, Kothon is 6, so you can't do both. You can't do both.
Right. Yeah, you can't actually do both this turn,
So
so you
he's
have to
gonna
make
have to
it.
kill something.
Yep.
That gives Shed the go ahead for lethal here on Death Strike. So there you have it. Worked out. I guess he felt that if Kothon was getting activated there, Buckwheat just wasn't going to have enough else to stop him from having lethal, and that ended up being correct.
It did indeed there. So looks like Shed is going to pick up the first game in the series as we head into the player sideboards.
Yeah, so with these sideboards, Shed's got 2 gifts, Zindel's gift, a Celestial Omen, a Channel of the Tempest, Rain of Frogs, Last Word, just ton of stuff if he wants to try and keep up with the supposed card advantage that the Chalice deck can gather. What do you think? Is it worth bringing in gift? Make Buckwheat bring in something like the Decays, and that's really it as far as the answers to that. Island's Choice can't even do it. Seems like a good idea to me.
Yeah, I would certainly bring in the Azindel's gifts here for, exactly what you just touched on. You're forcing Buckwheat to bring in 2 copies of Decay that otherwise are just blanked cards. So you're forcing your opponent to look at your sideboard, accurately judge what you're sideboarding in, because if he doesn't bring the Decays in, Azindel's gift will just kill this matchup. That's going to push Shed very highly in favor, assuming that he can hit Azindel's gift in any sense of a timely fashion. He's going to be able to bring that down and just close the match out right away. So
Yeah.
I certainly think Azindel's gift is going to be one of the biggest cards in the matchup. And, as we said, Buckwheat's going to have to accurately read that and bring in his copies of Decay.
Rain of Frogs is another interesting card in this matchup in that it can hit some of the more troublesome cards that Feln can struggle to deal with. It obviously can hit Chalice, but even if it doesn't hit Chalice, hitting something like Scorpion Wasp or Desert Marshal can be quite nice. These ambush units can be really annoying if your plan is to win in the skies with Harbinger and Champion of Cunning and they get in the way. But of course, the downside to Rain of Frogs is giving your opponent Chalice targets with Destiny if it doesn't hit Chalice, which can be a drawback as well. So it's a funny dance, Rain of Frogs, but I think ultimately it's worth bringing in because it can hit Chalice, it can hit Harsh Rule, which means you don't have to worry about overcommitting to a board, which can be nice, stuff like that. So I expect, it looks like just looking at Shed here, Zindel's Gift, Channel of the Tempest, Celestial Omen, Rain of Frogs, all coming in, just going to try and bleed your control opponent dry of threats and wing.
Definitely. I have to agree with the Rain of Frogs there. On the other side of the table, we got Buckwheat with his classical Chalice sideboard. He's got 4 copies of Permafrost. He's got 2 Bring Downs. I definitely think Bring Down will probably find its place in this matchup. Plenty of units you want to silence, and then it can also take down the Black Sky Harbingers, so pretty solid there, has some dual utility. Other notable cards, possibly Great Parliament's coming in here. That's certainly a card that Buckwheat could have used in that last matchup. He really just needed a lot of threats on the board that he could push through and actually, force a bunch of damage through. And they help out on the draws like we just saw where Buckwheat didn't find the Chalice. So he only had these tiny units on the board that really couldn't attack or do anything useful. Instead, having a ton of 4/4 flyers will help out and give you a clock that you can actually race your opponent down with and put them under some pressure.
Yeah, a Feln deck with no backlash or counter spells of any kind anywhere means that it's this Great Parliament tech is going to be a very nice way to reload the board. They can't swing through a Black Sky Harbinger, and obviously they get cleaned up by Withering Witch Harbinger, but it still can just be such a powerful card in that I agree that wouldn't be surprised to see more come in.
Yeah.
The other interesting card here is Bring Down. It just super cleanly, again, one of Chalice's big weaknesses is dying to flyers. We saw Harbinger Beatdown there be effective. It doesn't straight up kill Champion of Cunning if it already has an Aegis, But if it doesn't, it silences it and then kills it. So if it ever comes back with Vera, it's just a vanilla 5/5 still, which sounds like a good deal to me. So wouldn't be too shocked to see some of those come in. I've seen those also get played alongside Levitate before. That's not happening here with Buckwheat's list, but I think Bring Down will do enough here that it makes the cut.
Yeah, and I think those are going to be most of the cards we're seeing coming in. I possibly Permafrost out of Buckwheat. How do you feel about those?
It looked like he brought them in, and yeah, sure. Sewer to the Past can be an annoying thing to deal with. It doesn't shut down Felon Bloodcaster from activating, but still, keeping cards away from the Void so Vera can't get them back can be a useful thing until you absolutely have to Harsh Rule. So just buying yourself time with Permafrost seems like an acceptable thing to do. I don't know if there's cards I would prefer to play over it once I took a look at the entire 90. But it looks like this game is about to get started here.
Yeah, and Shed has a very interesting situation here, whether or not he wants to keep it. It looks like he will force a redraw. He did have 3 copies of Sabotage to 2 power in his hand, so going a little bit overkill on the Sabotage, although he would have been able to take the Chalice away from Buckwheat early.
Yeah. Instead, he's got a hand with Witches and Harbingers, which are nice, and the Trailblaze will help smooth out this draw. I imagine he's just going to be digging for power with it. So, not a terrible hand from Shed, and I imagine he just keeps that Sigil on top. Yep, draws it, and is just looking to curve out here. Another Witch. All right, so you can deal with a board if Buckwheat builds it up, but in the meantime, Buckwheat might be drawing cards every time he plays a unit, and that's where he wants to be.
Yeah, this Crystalline Chalice definitely looks like it's coming down here on the next turn.
Yeah.
And once he establishes the Crystalline Chalice, then this becomes more of a back and forth game. Now, fortunately for Shed, he does have 2 Withering Witches, 2 Black Sky Harbingers, and a Lightning Storm. So the first 1 or 2 boards Buckwheat establishes, Shed will be able to take care of.
Right.
But after that, it's going to be a little more tricky to navigate.
And the thing is, with each of these units drawing a card, the board is it's never actually going to stop getting built upon. Buckwheat has to just be so happy that he was on the draw and his opponent on turn 4 didn't cast Rain of Frogs when he had a Chalice. I'm sure that just got a huge sigh of relief out of Buckwheat. And now he's got the Chalice going. All Buckwheat needs to do is try and stay alive, weather this storm, and keep drawing cards. That's just what he wants to do. And eventually he hopes he'll find a way to win this.
Yeah, we see Archive Curator coming into Buckwheat's hand. That's actually a very solid pickup here. Plenty of threats he would like to go ahead and use that Archive Curator on.
Mm-hmm. And it's looking like he's just opting to get more power out of his deck. He's okay taking 3 damage from this Steward and finds another Chalice. So double Chalice activations takes a bit more time to get to, but still powerful. And Shed's got to decide, does he want to take out a Parliament with this Sabotage that he drew off the top, or take out the second Chalice?
And he does elect to take the Parliament, which I absolutely think is the right play there. Once the first Crystalline Chalice is in play, the Chalice deck is essentially set up. Sure, they can get a lot more done with 2 Chalices, but as you said, it takes a little bit longer to set up, and Buckwheat's pushing 8 power now, and 2 4/4 Owls is a real threat.
Yeah, he would have been able to deal with the Parliament eventually by just Witch Storm or Witch Harbinger, but Shed doesn't even know when he's going to get that extra power. And I mean, against a Chalice deck, I think you've got to just slam these 5/5 Champions of Cunning and just somehow hope you can get through the pressure with them in the game before it's over.
Definitely. But looks like Buckwheat is finally in a position where he's able to drop multiple threats a turn. He can even use Chalice, and this is really when the Chalice deck gets going. Around the 6 to 8 power mark, once they could start dropping 1 to 2 threats per turn, using that Chalice, getting the extra card draw. I mean, we're starting to see the whole game plan come together for Buckwheat.
Yeah, this is going to be a really tough game for Shed to navigate to a victory. He doesn't even know what's in Buckwheat's hand, but I'm sure he can take a guess that it's not good for him. And he swings here with the Champion of Cunning. He's just trading it for a 4/3. I mean, I guess but you're also only on 3 of each influence. It's just you don't have any good moves here. You can Bears favor Lightning Storm to kill one unit here. Like, okay, is that, and then swing with the champion? Like, that's an option, but he's just opting to swing in the champion. And when you're getting 1-for-1 trades with your units on Chalice, you're just so far ahead at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I would have liked to have seen there was actually a Lightning Storm in a Varus favor on the Temple Scribe. That way he could have taken... Well, actually, at that point, he had reduced it, so he would have been able to clear the whole board. The problem is, Buckwheat's not stopping anytime soon. Like, he's got the full combo going, so, you take care of the one set of units, but here comes the next set right away.
Yeah, it felt like you kind of needed to just Varus favor plus Lightning Storm to clear up that 4-3 and swing with your 5-5 just to connect for 5 that turn. Because again, you don't need the Lightning Storm. You've got 2 Harbingers to combo with Witch anyways. I think just trying to take the most aggressive line possible is your best path to victory. Again, though, this is just such a rough spot for Shed. I mean, Buckwheat swinging for a whole bunch here is just going to play more units or actually channel your face for lethal because the Tempest card. And yeah, Shed was just on 5 power a little too long, not getting the pressure he needed.
Yeah, and even if he had gotten to 6, 7, 8 power, I'm still not sure he would have been able to weather the storm.
Oh yeah.
One of the reasons why Chalice was so good in set 1 and continues to be good in set 2 is it does have that sense of inevitability where you will eventually grind your opponent down. And, as we just saw there, Buckwheat able to just continually refill his hand, draw multiple units on the board, buff them up to a reasonable state and just keep pushing. And Felon Control, unfortunately, just runs out of answers at some point. It's not an infinite supply.
Felon Control can keep up, provided your Rain of Frogs hits the right thing, or you have a gift down, or you have your Vera with Harbinger Witch Champion of Cunning Chains. Like, you have just as potent of an endgame engine as Chalice. It's just they got their Chalice online while you were stumbling, not pressuring, not drawing cards, basically not doing anything. And it just, Shed got drowned in a sea of 3-3s and 4-3s. So we'll see if they made any adjustments here for this matchup, and then we'll be getting this match underway. All tied up with they're playing to go to 5-1 here. I believe the winner becomes a 5-1er. And then the other one will go down to 4-2.
Yeah, the winner of this is going to be 5-1, so they're going to have to play a win-in to make our top 8 today. So this is a pretty important match. The loser of this is very likely not going to make it into the top 8. So this is essentially playing for their top 8 life.
Right. The way this bracket will work out, I think one player at 2 losses, maybe 2, will make the top 8. So you're really hoping to be 5-1 at the end of this rounders. You're going to have your work cut out.
Absolutely. We see the players just ripping through the first few turns of this game. They're ready to go.
Cards.
Yep, just drawing through their cards. We see Buckwheat has the Chalice here. He also has an Aegis over his face now with the Island's favor. So even if Shed finds the Sabotage, he won't be able to take care of the Chalice.
Yep. Shed's got to decide if he wants to get that 5th power in hand and pop the Aegis via Varus favor, or just get down to 2-5. And he opts to play the Varus favor, pop that Aegis. More importantly, get that 5th power in hand. If he draws a primal source, he's going to have Champions of Cunning coming down that have flying and Aegis. We'll see what the top of his deck provides here. Meanwhile, Buckwheat still drawing cards. And I think if you're Shed, you just slam a 5-5 here. Buckwheat doesn't even have Double Justice open, but he's all right. He decides he's so close to that 5th primal that he opts to just play the 2-5.
Yeah, he plays it safe here, which I can certainly respect, and he does hit it right there. So that's good for him. He's going to have these Champion of Cunnings down, and if he can find one more power, he'll be able to drop the Azendel's gift, and that's gonna put him. That's going to at least take Buckwheat a full turn off to use his Decay to take care of it.
So Buckwheat's got the Scorpion Wasp to deal with this first 5-5 flyer. But if Shed just draws the undepleted power, the gift is coming down. If Shed wanted to be really cute, he could have Celestial Oven to guarantee the power, but I think he's better off just dropping Champions of Cunning with Aegis in the meantime. And he's going to be able to gift his opponent, who already has a Chalice in play at least. Like, Buckwheat will be able to reload here, but it's going to take out 2 Channel the Tempests at least, and that's huge.
Well, Buckwheat does have the decay on the left side of his
Oh,
hand, so he will be able to take
that'll
care
do
of it
it.
right away. But it does eat up most of his turn here.
Yeah.
So that is at least slightly positive, albeit, Shed had to obviously take off his whole turn for it. So
yeah, I mean, making them have decay there was a reasonable play anyways. But yeah, that's a good point. I just totally blanked on that decay being in hand. So yeah, Buckwheat's actually still totally fine here. Still drawing power, playing units. And yeah, these Champion of Cunnings are applying pressure, but it gets to pop the Aegis there. Still at 22 life. We still got a ton of game ahead of us here.
yeah, something important to note now, though, now that Shed has forced out the decay, if Shed goes and checks his opponent's deck list, he knows that Buckwheat is playing max 2 decay. So this Celestial Omen can easily go fish up his second gift and drop it on Buckwheat and almost assure him that he'll be able to discard Buckwheat's whole hand.
So,
and once that hand is gone, that really opens the game up for Shed.
Again, though, a gift on a Chalice deck isn't the end of the world anyways, just because the Chalice is already in play. You can keep drawing cards and playing them. It does hamper them a bit, though. It doesn't let them build up these massive hands or slow roll harsh rule or anything. But Shed opted to play the Rain of Frogs last turn against an opponent that already had a Chalice going. He did grab 2 Channel the Tempest, though, which ended up being a nice payoff. Buckwheat, though, continuing to pop these Aegis and hoping to find an answer to these very large flyers. Looks like he can take them out of the skies if he wants to, at the very least.
Yeah, he does have the Desert Marshal now.
Shed's running out of gas here. I imagine this Omen is going to hit a Vera at the point. I think that'll be his plan. But we'll see how this game plays out. Sabotage, all right.
Ooh, Sabotage. And he has 2 good choices here, either Harsh Rule or Great Parliament. And they're both solid. I feel like you do have to go with Harsh Rule there, although that doesn't make you feel great because you really would like to... you would have, of course, liked to have gotten rid of the Great Parliament to prevent the Owls from coming down and providing blockers for what's going to remain of his Champion of Cunnings. Obviously, we're going to see 1 taken down right here.
So yeah, Great Parliament's going to give Buckwheat at least 2 flyers, maybe 3 at some point. We'll wait and see. And Shed's gonna have to decide if he wants to play a Harbinger, knowing his opponent can play a bunch of 4/4 flyers. That doesn't sound very appealing to me. So I think he's gonna opt to Omen for either a Vera or maybe the Witch to go for a Witch Harbinger combo. But I'm thinking the Vera is more likely just because it gets back another unsilenced Champion of Cunning, which is currently lurking in Shed's void. And man, these archive curators are doing so much work here.
Yeah, this archive curator is going to be huge. I wonder if Shed is going to fish up. Well, I don't actually know what he can have at this point.
Yeah, he might
he
opt for a gift
counters.
just because he's so far behind. Again, the Chalice is going, and yeah, he opts to Vera and just hope to beat his opponent to death with this last Champion of. It's going to be tough through this Great Parliament. The Vera is going to help, but he's going to need to top deck well after this Vera in addition to that. He may even just Harbinger here to clean up a few Chalice targets. Again, kind of want the Harbinger to Witch Harbinger combo in this game. We'll see what happens here. The attack suggests that Vera is going to come down here now.
Yeah, I definitely feel that Vera is going to come down here. I think Shed needs to get Vera down here and just create multiple threats here and force Buckwheat to expend what's left of his hand. And yeah, Shed goes ahead and grabs the Champion of Cunning that was unsilenced. That way he can start buffing it up, and also since it is the flyer itself. And Black Sky Harbinger can still come down next turn. It's obviously not going to clean the board up unless Shed finds a combo piece. I guess that's what Shed is really playing towards at this point, is the Withering Witch.
Buckwheat's doing some debating here. He is at 12. He could have played Parliament there for 2 Owls, but he's 1 power away from getting 3 off it. And then he also opted to exhaust his Archive Curator, so that's 1 less thing in the way for this Champion of Cunning.
Oh, is this just lethal, though, actually? The Lightning Storm comes down and cleans up.
Yeah, that takes out the 4/3, so that clears the way.
15's going to come through. Yeah, Shed actually managed to pull this off.
Yeah, those buffs slowly but surely buffed up the the little 2/5 into a 10 attack unit, and that just kills Buckwheat there. Wow. Shed closing it out. Those champions of cunning slowly, incrementally buffing up the board, taking out that harsh rule and turning it into a frog meant he could just keep committing more and more large threats and keep around the old ones. And yeah, that Lightning Storm plus Harbinger cleared the way for those big ground units. Killing your opponent with ground units there. Not something you see very often against.
Yeah, it was very interesting there, and I did say at the end that like the way Shed was looking to win was to have a sweeper. I was imagining Withering Witch, but I guess Lightning Storm gets it done as well with the Black Sky Harbinger. 3 damage is enough to take care of most of those units. So
yeah,
he is able to sneak through there at the end.
Yep, Buckwheat took a risk, got greedy, tried to get a third owl off, and ultimately died for it. So, those are the decisions that you have to make at those just small margins. And ultimately ended up costing him the match. Still, though, like we said, has a shot at top 8. Both players are playing well on strong decks, and we'll see how it goes for them in the next round. One more round left before we cut to top 8. So still lots more Eternal to come here. I've been really enjoying it so far. Omens of the Past has been a joy to this so far.
Yeah, certainly, and a bunch of fantastic matches. And we're going to have more fantastic matches coming up in just a few moments, folks. We're going to cut to a short break, but the final round of Swiss, round 7, will be up in just a few. So we're going to see round 7, and then we're going to have our top 8 following it. So stay tuned. Do not go anywhere, folks. We will be back in just a few moments.